Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the broader market as well, and I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. So if you enjoy, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts, updates, etc. Well, again, I do have a YouTube membership where I constantly share all my updates, options flow, technical analysis constantly throughout the entire day. So definitely check that out if you're interested. The link is down below in the description for the private group. It's just $3 a month. That's all it is, right? Just $3 a month USD, and you get all my updates to Tesla and of course broader market updates when there's of course something worth mentioning. Naturally, $5 includes NVDA to that as well. So all my NVDA updates, options flow, technical analysis, etc. And then $7 a month includes pretty much every other stock when there's something in the market that, if a chart's setting up nice, if a chart's looking like it has bullish potential, maybe even bearish potential, I share that with them as well. That's just $7 a month, and it includes everything else, of course, as well. But jumping into a Tesla, closing the day down actually 1.25%, closing at $346.50 pretty much, right? So compared to the market itself, the market did actually go green today. So Tesla Classic likes to always go the inverse of the market. It's not uncommon for the stock to have its own little world, if you will, own little bubble, which is why a lot of people, they mention how, but if QQQ and the market decides to tank, wouldn't that make Tesla go tank as well? Well, yeah, theoretically it should. But, at the same time, the market's at all-time highs pretty much, and Tesla's pretty much nowhere near all-time highs. So it's kind of like, so it didn't follow the market to the upside, but it doesn't mean it has to follow the market to the downside, right? Remember, it's pretty often, honestly, in its own little bubble. So worth mentioning. However, going strictly off of Tesla's chart, we have some complications. Now, we closed decently last week, right? I mentioned how last week we had a decent closure, but it was just not enough for me to be fully convinced because it's just ever so slightly above that 350 mark. I want to see a stronger close above 350, right? I want to see a higher, more bullish, I guess, close, not just like an eensy-weensy bit above kind of the key level roughly, right? The low 350s. So that's why I mentioned on Friday how I'm not fully convinced. And today, yeah, we had a bit of a trap, right? A bit of a bull trap to the upside, but we couldn't really hold the gains, right? We couldn't hold the gains. And as we were retreating back down, I kept mentioning to my members that, guys, we do really want to go ahead and start turning about 350, right? Ish, give or take, into support. If we start losing that, then, we start having higher risks, essentially, of, a bearish reversal, bearish breakdown, etc. So today, what we did was, and I want to make this clear, the overall picture, in my opinion, is still bullish, but shorter term, yeah, there's a bit more complications because we printed a bearish engulfing candle. So this is what you should be watching for, honestly, pretty much this week, maybe even tomorrow, right? The low that we set today on Friday, very important. Watch for that low. Why? Well, there's a few reasons. Number one, like I said, bearish engulfing. If we lose essentially today's low pretty much, and we especially close a daily below 2 days low, right? Which is what, roughly like 344 and change, roughly, you can say, right? That would be bad. That would be bearish. That would be a concern because number one, it triggers this bearish engulfing candle, which is one of the stronger reversal candles. Engulfing candles, bullish or bearish, they're, of the top 5 candle patterns, it's in my opinion, top 5. It's a pretty potent one. That's something to watch. If we lose that and we close red tomorrow, or especially below that key level I just mentioned, it most likely triggers it. Number two, it also, unfortunately, now even further validates this being potentially a small little false breakout, which essentially also could be viewed as a bit of a liquidity sweep. That's a bit of a concern. And the third thing is this gap will most likely be filled. The thing is, and the best case scenario is that Tesla doesn't lose this low. This is the best case scenario right now for bulls. This low is not lost. This low was held even through tomorrow and essentially throughout this week, and it's not lost. And as long as this low is not lost, there is still bullish potential because, again, a bearish engulfing by itself is irrelevant. It's confirmation that gives it relevancy, if that makes sense. Very important to understand that key factor. So if we do not lose this low, if we actually hold, again, about 345, high 344s, whatever, somewhere around there, the bulls actually still maintain control, in my opinion, because we have this bullish gap up. The ideal scenario is we do not fill this gap and we do not enter the vicinity of filling that gap, which essentially is pretty much losing today's / Friday's low. And now we start entering the realm of the gap, essentially. We don't want that from a bullish perspective, because if we continue holding above that and not losing that low, this actually ends up being a stronger bullish move. Because if this is a true bullish move, if Tesla really wants to finally start making its way higher, it shouldn't fill this gap. That just shows extra bullishness. If that bullishness is clearly just not there, and for instance, again, we lose that low, then yeah, we most likely come down, at least fill the gap partially, fully, maybe even go back under it, right? But it removes a lot of that potential short-term bullishness that could have been here, that may still be here for Tesla, again, shorter term. But again, this is shorter term. I'm talking about shorter term this week, maybe even the next 2 weeks at most. probably this week though, right? With CPI, don't forget we have CPI on Thursday. So that's kind of what I'll be looking for. That's kind of my main thing. That's all I really care about. Does this low get snapped? If it does, a bit of a concern. Most likely we have short-term bullishness, faded away, honestly. I want to make it clear though, the overall picture to me, I still give bulls the upper hand, right? Why? Because, well, again, the MACD is still bullish. EMAs are bullish, still a bullish rising triangle pattern. Now, obviously the pattern itself is irrelevant until we actually get a breakout, because just because it's a bullish pattern, kind of like when you have a bull flag, it doesn't mean that it's going to, break out to the upside. Bull flags, it can fall apart and make its way down, right? Just because it's a bullish pattern, it doesn't mean it has to play out in bullish fashion, such as, breaking up and going higher. It doesn't guarantee it, right? It just means that it's a bullish pattern. But the resolution doesn't have to be bullish, right? Keep that in mind. The only thing that makes it a bullish pattern is because it happened after a move up, right? A move up into a consolidation implies a bullish pattern, but again, it doesn't guarantee bullish resolution. Very important. Most people don't understand this topic. It usually does, and the higher probability that it will, but it's absolutely not 100%. So in other words, the point is the fact that we're still within this, range. We still have the bullish EMAs. We still have the bullish MACD, right? We even have a bullish super trend. So all my main indicators are still pointing to the fact that Tesla is still on the overall bigger time frame for the next several weeks, maybe even a couple months, depending on how long it takes, is bullish, right? As long, as it remains inside this pattern and doesn't essentially lose this trend line. But that also could mean that we lose that momentum short term, and then we just have more of just pretty much nothingness really, and consolidate and essentially fill out the rest of this kind of openness, if you will, space on this rising triangle until we get closer to the apex where, at that point, we're probably getting a resolution relatively soon, whatever that may be. So that's important to understand. Now, if Tesla can break above and essentially turn that kind of low-ish 350s, if you will, into support and not just keep collapsing down below it like the way we've pretty much been doing, like here, 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 and now seemingly here, then I think the stock is finally ready to get that move up. 365 being the first target, followed by the 380s. And then honestly, wouldn't be surprised to see 400s again, right? But we need that breakout. We need stronger bullish confirmation above those kind of levels, right? My only hope is the fact that it doesn't happen over some random news events overnight and it just gaps up like 4% and then that's the breakout, and then it becomes a little bit more difficult of a situation, honestly, to like follow through with it, especially if you're not in it already. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking for. But again, as long as we don't lose this right here, as long as we don't lose this trend line, as long as we don't lose this low right here from September 2nd, which is pretty much around 326 roughly, I give bulls the upper hand. So that's kind of how I overall see this perspective, if you will, on Tesla stock. Let's go over the Qs quickly. So the bulls are coming in pretty decently here, right? And you can see they did actually not only invalidate this potential, what could have been a bearish head and shoulders pattern. I've seen a lot of head and shoulders pattern being invalidated. It's pretty interesting. But it's arguably invalidated, right? It's pretty much in the territory of the head. So you can absolutely make an argument it's invalidated. But the bulls are actually hanging on. Now we'll see how this continues on with the rest of this week. We'll see how this continues on with CPI on Thursday, etc. But we have bullish EMAs. We don't have a bullish MACD, so that's a concern. But we still have the bullish super trend as well. And we not only that, but we also broke above on the Qs. Remember that 575 level I told you about? And then we broke above it on Friday's candle. And then we came down, retested the EMAs, and held above 575. Yeah, that's good signs. Those are good signs. If we get another closure below 575, if we start losing both of these EMAs again, that could start spelling further trouble. And we can, at the very least, come down to fill this gap. If not, retest these lows down here, which below these lows, that's when, in my opinion, real problems in the market start happening. So Qs below 560 is when we really start getting problems. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of the main perspective there on the Qs. But as long as we're essentially above about the mid 570s, the bulls, in my opinion, still have overall control. Now, the risk and the caveat that is worth mentioning is that there is a large bearish divergence on the MACD, for instance, whereas the Qs and especially SPY, as it's essentially going up and to the right, the MACD is going down and to the right? The opposite direction, if you will, right? It's not following the market. There's a bit of a bearish divergence. If I bring out this RSI, same idea, bit of a bearish divergence, right? Same thing. If I go SPY, for instance, bring out this RSI, same idea, nice bearish divergence. Market's going up and making higher highs. RSI, well, pretty much doing the exact opposite, lower highs, right? That's a nice bearish divergence. Same with the MACD. So if there is a concern of potential, and I would say the word potential because divergences don't always mean that it'll just go straight down from here, right? Divergence doesn't mean it's going to go like this right away. Divergence can also just mean that, well, we just go sideways here for potentially an extended period of time. And that's the correction. Corrections can be down or sideways. Doesn't always have to be down. But that's what, at the very least, the divergence is telling me. The fact that the market, despite still being bullish here, I see no real major reason to be completely worried, at least not yet. It could mean the fact that we're also probably not really going up substantially higher just yet as this divergence kicks in. And, at the very least, we get a sideways move and pretty much just a lot of chop for potentially a while. Or if we lose key levels, like I mentioned on the Qs, for instance, if we start losing 575 or mid 570s, if we especially start losing 560, then we get a retest of previous all-time highs. So anyways, that's kind of what I got on the market, and that's kind of what I got on Tesla. Options flow on Tesla, taking a very quick look at the options flow, seeing what's happening over here. Yeah, there was a lot of puts. I was telling my members about this since I think Tesla was in like the 352s or something like that. I kept mentioning how puts are coming in. There are people, especially in the morning, they were buying puts right here. They started right around 10:30 a.m. Yeah, the puts were being bought. Short-term puts, weekly puts were being bought on Tesla stock, and clearly Tesla got a pretty decent reversal off of that so far intraday. So let's continue monitoring that, guys. Let's see what we can get going into tomorrow. But I would absolutely be watching for essentially today's low. That's a very important level to hold, in my opinion, if bulls want shorter term bullish momentum faster. Yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.